Live, live, live. Okay, guys, Guru Nation, good morning. It's Tuesday after Memorial Day. Feels like a Monday. Happy beginning of the week. We've got a special one today. This one all weekend, guys. I've been sick. I've been under the weather. Just recovering at home, going through LinkedIn a lot, not posting as much, just reading, which I don't do that often, but I'm seeing like a lot of nervousness over the weekend, and CROs are laying off, and we're in a recession, and there's a lot of people in our industry that are posting like, hey, I just been laid off. um, can you help me find a new job? And as a small site owner, I'm not necessarily, I don't have my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the greater industry. Like I have my own micro environment I can control. And yeah, we lose studies, but we get new ones. So it doesn't really, like, the net is the same basically. Like, we're still growing. I'm looking to hire someone else in the late summer, and um, maybe in the fall one more. So like my small site is growing, but that's nowhere like indicative of our industry. And
Mhm.
Ashley Margot, my Latinos in Clinical Research co-founder, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, if you guys don't know her, she's in the CRA Academy, CRC Academy, as far as she gives people LinkedIn advice, LinkedIn audits, resume preps for all of our graduates. She also does it for herself. If you're not part of the academy, just message her on LinkedIn, and we are also on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So no more Facebook, no more YouTube jail. So I'm live streaming on YouTube. We can say anything we want. I got 3 strikes. We're ready to go. Three, you get 3 strikes, Ashley. Um, but I wanted to bring Ashley on because she's somebody who, and I don't know if we've really discussed this publicly, but she resigned from Remote Site Monitor a few
Mhm.
months ago from a major CRO,
Mhm.
and she has 3 or 4 years of like CRO experience. So she's somebody that was actually going to get promoted before she resigned.
Mhm.
And so, what better person to check into than Ashley? Somebody who I think can get a job anywhere she wants. Matter of fact, for me and Chris, for our CRO, we're going to get Ashley some side job doing stuff for us as a contractor, and we'll get into contracting later. But
Mhm.
what's been the job market like for you? Like, how long have you been applying? Have you been applying? Are we in a recession in research?
So I resigned, I believe, March 14th or the 10th. I still can't remember. It's kind of hazy now, to be quite honest. But since then, honestly, maybe applied to 4 or 5 positions. Like actively just went in there and actually made an application. And that was mainly because, I've been working since I was 19 and I had the choice to be able to take some time off. So that was pretty ideal for me, obviously. And it was just until maybe the beginning of May that I started to actively really try to apply, have conversations with individuals, companies, and all of those kinds of things. I have had recruiters reach out to me actively. Obviously, if you have your LinkedIn up to date and up to par and all of those good things, sometimes you won't even have to necessarily apply, especially if you're a remote site monitor, clinical research associate. You'll be having recruiters definitely come to you. And
Have you had this?
yes, yes, I've had multiple.
More than four.
I would say more than six. More than
I see.
six.
So
Yeah.
you just applied to four, but more than six reached out to you in these almost 3 months.
Yes, but these are recruiters that weren't linked to those jobs. These are recruiters that are just looking on LinkedIn for people with my background.
I gotcha.
So yeah, yeah. And yeah, we go into depth about what it is that I'm looking for, what it is that I'm wanting. There obviously, like, economic wise, I do feel that there is a recession happening. But as far as in the actual industry, no, there's a plethora of jobs that are open. There's a plethora of jobs that are still opening. I mean, some of these companies that I'm speaking to, that and or recruiters that I'm speaking to, um, the idea is more of the saying is more of the well, there's actually a lot more jobs that are coming down the pipeline, so we'll keep our options open with you. But obviously for me, because I'm going to be particular now, because I'm going to be specific as to what it is that I'm wanting to do, a little bit more nitpicky, then yes, for me it's going to take some time, but that's something I'm already okay and comfortable with, right? But as far as somebody that's just actively looking for work that has background, it's not going to be an issue. But I think that a lot of the times is you either lose your job or you leave your job, and we're so used to, especially CRAs, I think we're so used to being busy and heavily busy, right? They micromanage all your time, or they micro use all your time, right? So you're always, if you wanted to be every minute of the day, you could be busy. And once it stops, obviously, I think that there's a huge period, maybe like a week period. And I told this to you in one of your other podcasts that I even felt like I was going through withdrawal a little bit, right? Because you go from being so actively busy to just silence, right? And I think
Mhm.
at that point, people get nervous. But in this industry, you have to remember that it takes time, even with somebody with a background, for you to get picked up or noticed, picked up, and processed and onboarded,
Were
right?
you nervous ever?
No, I wasn't nervous. Like I said, I resigned. I made that active choice. But I did go through the withdrawal process. I think that the first week I was more in my head about, okay, well, did I make the right decision? Yes, no, yes, no. And then after that, I think the next 3 weeks, I was going through spurts of withdrawal and or I would even call it like a tweak, because there was times where I was relaxing and just sitting and maybe watching TV, and then I would just jolt a little bit because I thought I had to get on the computer, right? And I think these are real things, and it's taking time, being slow with yourself, understanding where you're at, what is factual, right? Because I think it's more of, well, I'm never gonna get a job and this is never gonna happen, and it's like more like it's only been 2 weeks, relax,
But
right?
if you had to, let's say when you resigned,
Mhm.
yeah, so you were not part of any mass layoffs, but
No.
the a lot of the CROs. I mean, what have I been reading then? Am I looking at an alternate universe? Like this weekend, maybe the algorithm's just showing me like the bad stuff, but I read a lot of posts that say, "Hey, I just been laid off. Can you guys help me out?" From like major CROs. Like
Yeah.
who are the people getting laid off right now?
Well, from what I've seen, and I know you have a way bigger following, so but more on the recruitment side that I've seen, right? More on the, I guess, HR, and again, I don't personally know those processes. I know, coming from a bigger organization before, that seeing the internals, just because it's on the HR division doesn't mean that they were necessarily just focused on actively hiring. Sometimes they could have been individuals that were just there to help get leads out or get leads for the actual HR people that hire. So doesn't necessarily mean that they're no longer hiring or that it's going to get stopped. I think it's just, we were going through a massive boom, right? A serious, serious boom. And on top of that, I think it was a huge bottleneck period where there was just so many applicants that these companies could not process these individuals fast enough. So they obviously had to hire, on top of that, a plethora of people that could help those processes. So I think now that we have gone through, what, I think 2 years now since COVID, where we're hiring like crazy, I think now it's like, okay, well, not that we have enough already, no, but I just think that now we're not trying to hire as fast. We're being more particular about our hires. We're taking our time now because we can take our time. So I think at that point, they don't need as many people either getting leads or even
I
maybe
see.
hiring them. Yeah.
So it's from the recruitment and
Mhm.
the um, job location, um, human resource spectrum. It's not from the actual operations.
That I've personally seen, yeah, that's what I've seen. So I mean, I think right now, because of, again, and just on the macro division of the economic standpoint of things, and actually seeing, some people get laid offs or some people just quitting or whatever. I do think that the word layoff is very alarming just in general. And I think it's important again that we all kind of like keep our head right and really think about, okay, well, who is this, what's the background, um, how do the job applications that are being put out right now for that particular company or companies, how does that look right now? Because the ones that I've seen, I mean, I'm not going to mention any names, but the ones that I've seen, they're still hiring like crazy. And I know because obviously I'm already in particular about who I'm talking to about what I might or might not be doing in the future with certain companies or people. But I like to still keep track of what's getting posted out there because rule number one, don't assume nothing, don't assume everything and just like act like you know nothing. And so I always make sure that I'm checking the jobs that are being posted and that are new and there's still so many being posted that are new. So no, if anything, I think that as far as CRAs are concerned and CRCs, especially on the CRC end, what we've been having discussions on the LICR end with these companies that are needing CRCs and CRAs, there's a massive need still. So I don't think that in those areas that anybody needs to worry about at all.
Yeah, I made a post this weekend. So I did make one post. It was a video short
Mm-hmm.
on what to do if you've just been laid off. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. But some of the comments, and a lot of the people that have been affected by the layoffs
Mm-hmm.
are unfortunately from like non-traditional type of companies. Like everyone knows Care Access, right? Care
Mm-hmm.
Access basically got caught. It was a house of cards, seemingly. I don't know details, but from
Yeah.
the surface, it looks like it was a house of cards that just fell apart. And it makes sense that those workers, most of them good workers, like
Mm-hmm.
got laid off, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it also makes sense that they can't find or they're having a harder time finding work. What
Yeah.
advice do you recommend, let's say, for somebody from Care Access or one of these other companies that are less traditional, but like it's still clinical research. The people who work there still understood a lot of the fundamentals
Yeah.
of our industry. Like, what is your advice for them?
So in those cases where, I mean, me personally, the way I'd feel is be like, obviously, especially if you had the vast majority of your experience situated there, which is not obviously an easy thing, right? So say if I was a coordinator and I was in Care Access and I was there for 2, 3 years, which probably was the start of my career, right? Because from what I've heard, a lot of these coordinators were they started there. And so if that's the case, I personally, if I'm noticing that nobody's picking me up and I have enough background, I would start doing alternative things. For example, I would look in my region and look what the average pay or competitive pay is for coordinators. And then I would go from site to site and or institution, medical institution or university and offer my services, but offer at a lower rate. And the reason why I would do that is because I'm solely going to be focused on, because obviously it's a very particular situation. Sometimes you have to do particular things as opposed to other people. And that's just me trying to get a job and get back on my feet and get rebranded, right? So I would offer my services at a lower price, maybe just for a certain period of time, even if it's 6 months. Offer it, and if they don't have anything open, go for something smaller, go for data management, something like that. But I would do that individually and go in person to do that, and because I feel that right now, especially like at site levels, everybody's just, again, economy, everyone's trying to maintain well. So I think on the financial end, for you to kind of help, I guess you'd say, shadow the branding that Care Access gave you, is just to reinstate, like, this is my background, this is what I know. Try to discuss and re-verify how much you know in your background, and then again bring in a smaller offer and say, you're going to have to pay another coordinator this amount. I'm willing to do it for this, and if you want, I'm even happy to do it under shadowing somebody if that makes you feel more comfortable, right? Just to showcase my skill set. Again, that's just me acting on like dire need. If I'm really having a difficult time to come in and get somebody to consider me and remove the branding that Care Access left. But other than that, it's just, again, like networking, making sure that you are getting out there. But in situations where I understand networking sometimes takes time, takes money, and most of, coordinators, right? If you've been in the industry for a while, I mean, you obviously you have bills, more than likely you have family. So getting out there and networking a lot and maybe even paying for networking events is not something that's as feasible. So for me, that's what I would do. Because at that point is just when you're making applications, your resume is what's branding you, right? And so if what's on your resume and most recent and what's usually the thing that's going to actually get you the job that's harming you, then the next best thing is coming in person, showing face, letting them have that opportunity to speak to you directly and sell yourself. Because I mean, that's really what it is, right? You're having to come in and explain your background. And I mean, you don't have to, but in certain cases, risk management, like the way I like to put it, is I personally would like to explain myself and give them the opportunity to see that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to showcase that I'm not a part of somebody else's brand. I'm my own brand.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll save my advice for towards the end of this video, but we've
Mhm.
got some questions. And so if you had to, you personally, if
Yeah,
you had to get a job, how long would it take you to get one?
like right now,
Yeah.
probably not long, to be quite honest. I've already had multiple offers. I even had one that told me they wanted to start next week. But it just wasn't what I wanted. So yeah.
But would a lot of the people, so some of the comments from my post yesterday or Sunday, I can't remember anymore. I was
Mhm.
sick, guys. But they said, the problem was I worked fully remote
Mhm.
as a coordinator. So I guess there's some fully remote coordinator
Yeah,
positions out there.
there are. Mhm.
And that was this whole like decentralized trial thing. Like most sites do not do decentralized trials. Like
Mhm.
that's not really a real thing. That was a thing that I think the industry or certain people, venture capital was definitely pushing it. And we saw what happened with Care Access to some extent. I don't think CVS is part of that boat, but
Mhm.
CVS also hired a lot and they had to lay off too. So,
Yeah. Actually, I
CVS,
forgot about CVS. Yeah.
me
Well.
too, me too. And CVS wasn't a house of cards. I don't think it's fair to put them in the same category as Care Access, but
Yeah.
they did go on mass hiring sprees and then mass layoffs. Like, so those are people without jobs as well. But to go, like, if you worked at one of these untraditional companies
Hmm.
and you try to get back into the game, you're going to have to go the traditional route.
Yeah.
And there are elements that traditional sites would want to pick your brain for. I hate that term, but pick your
Yeah.
brain, especially if it's not a house of cards like CVS, maybe. Like,
Hmm.
and I guess I'll save that for the end. But the fully remote, because you were fully remote,
Hmm.
are you still able to get fully remote?
Um, so there have been opportunities, yes, fully remote, but what I will say to that is, especially with coordinator roles right now, you know, if you got the opportunity to get a remote one and then you got laid off, I mean, first off, like obviously it would be a great thing. And congratulations at the point of receiving it, right? Because it is not an often opportunity out there to do remote coordinator roles, right? And even remote CRAs, like other than the remote where you're working from home and then you travel, yes, but
Mhm.
the full remote where you're entirely remote, like what the way I was, that is not often. Now, the reason why I'm finding things is because I already have some background currently in form of management, right? And I can speak to that. And so the roles that I'm being offered that are remote are higher level project management, those kinds of things. As far as the CRA roles are concerned, I'm being offered the traditional. Now, am I open to that? Yes, based off on, is it regional? Is it this or that? Can I line up what it is exactly that I want for the travel, etc. But for those of you that, for example, people maybe that came from CVS that you barely even got to start, right? You have to understand that if you are wanting fully remote, that is very slim pickings, and you, along with many others that got laid off that maybe had the same scenario, are going to be applying. So naturally, that doubles down on your opportunities, like just factual right there, right? Um, Naturally, if you are in dire need for a job, you are going to have to make, exceptions, right? There were certain things like for me, coming out of a job, so I gave myself some time to really think about this because I wanted to make sure that, okay, these are the time frames that I'm giving myself, right? During this time frame, I'm going to be picky. These are going to be the things I want. If I haven't found anything that fit at that time point, this is the second phase that I'm going into. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm willing to expand on a little bit more now. And if I'm in an extreme dire position, like towards the end of the year or next year, that I'm already extended to my outmost amount of time, that point it's like, okay, well, screw it. I'm going to say, all right, I can travel anywhere. I'll travel anywhere. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'm having myself in phases, allowing myself the opportunity to be picky, but also being fully aware that if I get to the point where I am in dire need, then I'm going to, so they say, suck it up and just take the job, right? Because that
Yeah,
is what it is, especially if you are in a position for needing rebranding. You definitely don't
yeah.
want to be picky because these are opportunities that can be lost,
That
right?
was part of my advice in the video on the I
Mhm.
did a 1 minute short, so it's hard to get all my advice in it. But
Yeah.
if you worked at one of these non-traditional companies and you
Mhm.
get laid off, it's time to get traditional. Like this was an experiment. It failed. Okay, we can say CVS, maybe it was even a noble experiment, like a lot of the industry was saying. Okay, noble or not noble, it failed.
Mhm.
It's time to go back. If you want to get back in the market, you're gonna have to go the traditional route, but you can bring elements of
Mhm.
it. I'll save that for the end. But we've got, I don't know if you noticed, we have a bunch of people watching right now.
Oh, really?
There's
No,
a
I don't. I can't
there's
see
like almost 50 just on LinkedIn right now
it.
watching. So this is like
I'm not
like
used to that. I'm used to maybe 20, 10.
yeah, and we're also on Facebook and YouTube, but I'm not
Oh,
looking
wow.
there.
Okay. Well,
But
great.
some of these comments, we got to get into some of these
Yeah.
comments and put your
I
guys'
mean, I
comments.
got time, so
You got time. What will it take? Let's just do for you real quick before
Yeah.
30 seconds. What will it take for you to no longer have time and get hired?
Fully remote. Make sure that you meet the amount that I want to get paid. Obviously, great benefits, of course. Kind of the offside of coming from a really great company, right? You want to get all the great benefits and stuff, and then also autonomy in the sense of understanding that I have things I'm doing outside of my work that are industry related. They don't clash, but it's just I like to be present. I have all these things that I'm involved with, if you see right here. And whoever I work with needs to be comfortable with that, period. Like that's not a non-negotiable. And I would say no micromanagement because I have my background because I know what to do, and I don't need somebody like hounding down on me, right? Because I got awarded for reasons, and so that's just it is what it is, and that's I think would be about it. Yeah,
All right.
a
Some
handful.
fair conditions.
It's not
If we're gonna get to the comments right now. Put your comments. If you're listening on the podcast later, it's obviously not live, but you want to tune into live. So LinkedIn, YouTube, those are the channels to go. Um, Share this right now, okay? If there's a lot of people obviously concerned about the state of the industry, which I think it's a tale of two industries, and we can get into that too. But share this right now so somebody who needs to see it can watch it. Ashley Margot's available for anybody who wants to talk. Okay, here's the first. I don't understand why the company, Huma says, I don't understand why the company is posting the same job for months and we can see hundreds of applicants. Why don't they give a chance to anyone? Don't they find a suitable candidate amongst those hundreds? Ashley, as someone who was in the belly of the beast in one of these places, what are they doing here?
So one, I think that just like anything else, right? If we're not working or in that division or in the department, like we're gonna have our own opinions about it. But from my understanding is that when it comes to HR, at least from my background in HR in the clinical industry, you have to leave the post up for a certain amount of time. One, and then two, it also depends on when exactly they're needing somebody. If there's a deadline and that's months down, then there's not going to be a huge rush to go through those applications right away. And that also means that it gives them the opportunity to pick up more potential competitive applicants. So, I mean, on a business standpoint, I don't blame them for doing that. It's smart, and it just is what it is. That's honestly all I can say about that. Again, this is also as somebody that's applying, it's also our responsibility just to make sure that we're not putting all our eggs in one basket or a small amount of baskets, because we're setting ourselves up for failure in the sense of, okay, well, I really want this job. I really want this company, this one, this one, this one. It's like, well, when you look at risk management and actual statistics of you getting it, sometimes it's not there. And you have to be fully aware of that, okay with it when you send in that application. The way I do it, or what I would do it in the past, is I wouldn't even look at the number of applicants, because one, you don't know if these applicants even have any background. You didn't even know if they have anything particular to what it is that they're looking for specifically. If they come with licensing or no licensing, or if they're just kind of one of those YOLO applicants that are just like, hey, I don't meet this, but let me just apply. I mean, I was one of those when I started, and I applied probably within a 2-month period to, I'm not even joking, potentially 100 some jobs, just because I said, I don't care. I know I don't meet the qualifications. I'm just going to get my crap out there and get it out there, and that's it. Right. I have nothing to lose. So you making these, letting these things kind of run in your head about, well, there's so many and I'm never going to get it. You have to just apply and let it go. That's literally the best way to do it. If not, you're going to let your wheels run. And the thing is, this industry is what it is, and that's something you just have to be aware of coming into it, right? And just give it time.
Here's the next question. What's your opinion on the following? Currently a trainee project manager at Fortria. I have never been a CRA, but want to maximize my income. What is the better career in that regard, PM or CRA? Fortria, for those that don't know, it's LabCorp spun off a new CRO. I
Hmm.
think this is like supposed to be the next Covance, but it's
Oh, okay.
they're gonna be publicly traded. You'll hear this name a lot, I think, because it's something like 3 billion a year.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. It's gonna be a big CRO, but they're called Fortrea,
Okay.
and I assume it's gonna be all the LabCorp stuff like that used to be Covance. But
Well,
don't quote me on that. But it's gonna be a big CRO.
if you're project management, for me, I'm just on a whole, I've always, even before this industry, I've been huge on strategy, right? And strategy is, how well can I take what I'm doing and be able to maneuver within my industry and outside of the industry if needed, on a whim. Project management, I will say, I haven't jumped into it in the industry. I've touched it. I do project management more on the industry end for the organization, or the side stuff that we do. Project management is something that is fluid throughout all industries. So naturally, for me, I would say project management would be the most safest recourse that you could have, because that can go any which direction. Um, and I do think that project management has some benefits. Most of those jobs can and usually are remote. And if they're not remote, it is something that you can negotiate to being remote, as opposed to CRA. And another thing is that I do feel there is more room for growth in that area, in the sense of pay and, all those kinds of things. So a lot of more benefits on that end, in my opinion.
So really, you think that PM is more growth opportunity than CRA?
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Do you think AI has a lot to do with this, or
I mean, Oh, we're gonna go down that rabbit hole.
No, no, just a little.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
mild, just gently touch it.
yeah, gently touch it. Yeah. So I do think that when it comes to the work of the CRA, I think that there is and already are a lot of things being put in place to help manage that role a little bit more on the auditing and or document processing side. For project management, not so much, right? Because project management really comes down to, I think, your people skills, your own personal processing skills, your organization. Because there are some really amazing project managers out there that can do so much. It's insane. And then there's some out there that just are not meant for that job, like just honestly. So again, but don't go into that role with a light, a light touch. Understand that when you get into that indie industry, especially if you're getting into bigger roles and higher paying roles, you are going to definitely get paid for the amount of work you do, right? So that's same thing with the CRA, right? But I think that project management, there's so much more need for managers out there, that if you are somebody that is ambitious and goal oriented and actually focused and efficient, you can move so fast in project management, and you can really level up your pay. I think that's my own personal opinion.
All right, let's breeze through some of these. That's a good interesting take on this.
Mhm.
Busy CROs and companies don't care about people who come and go frequently. No sustainable staff. What say you, Ashley? Confirm
Uh,
or deny this rumor?
Come and go frequently in the sense of like getting hired, leaving, getting hired somewhere else, and coming back.
Yeah, CROs don't care about people who come and go frequently.
I
True or
mean,
false?
I think that that's debatable. I'm not going to say
Okay.
true or false, but it's debatable in the sense that if you have a great background and senior CRA or senior project manager, they're also going to, I think, take one in the mouth, like put their foot in their mouth and just bring you back on should you have a great track record. Because again, I think it comes down to there's so many entering the industry, but there's not a lot that are sustaining it with a lot of experience, right? Where they're trying to build that cohort of people now, that influx during COVID. So I think that those that do have heavy sustainability and senior management, all that stuff, they're gonna be lucky to be able to always come and go as they please and constantly, be asking for more. And I think this has already been
Were
happening in the industry, but it's
weren't
being more.
you weren't you at ACRP or something recently?
The
You were at
conference,
something, right? Yeah,
the conference, yeah.
that was not that long ago, like last month.
No, it was late April to early May.
Association of Clinical Research Professionals.
Yeah.
What? Just off the top of your head, like approximately how many attendees were there?
Oof. I would say a few hundred for sure.
A few hundred.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And how many were practicing CRAs or remote site
Oof,
monitors?
that I don't know, but there was a lot of. I think there was definitely more CRAs, but there was a heavy amount of project management and or leading individuals in the industry for management. So
Right.
yeah,
But if
definitely.
you take out managers, all right,
Okay.
I'm trying to get like trying to figure out something here. So if
Yeah.
you take ACRP, this is like the
Mhm.
conference for the people,
Yeah.
right? Everybody come. By the way, SOSSaveOurSites.com. Actually,
Yeah.
we have a conference for the people too, and
Yeah.
it's affordable. But forget all that for a second.
Yeah.
This conference, couple hundred people, ACRP, take out management
Mhm.
and leadership roles, like people, execs, or like leaderships.
Yeah.
How many workers were there? Coordinators or
Uh,
CRAs
I would
or
say
remote site monitors?
a big
Percentage.
handful. Percentage, I would say,
Like half?
yeah, I would say half.
Half. That's not bad.
No,
Okay.
there was a good
Okay.
amount of people there that, and that also that we met, right, at the exhibit. So yeah, I mean, there was a quite a handful, and mind you that there was in the very first day there was the workforce, and it was a full day event. There was a workforce workshop, and then there was the well, there was a project management one too, right? But the workforce one was there, and then pretty much everything that are in the sessions, these are research related sessions, site related sessions. So I do feel like there was a lot of people in attendance that were site.
Did you witness or see people getting interviewed there, informal interviews?
No, 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 I did not.
Okay,
No,
okay.
no, this is why, I mean, we still haven't decided yet. This is partially why we want to do that at Save Our Sites
Several sites,
conference.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, let's get back to it.
yeah.
Okay, in Korea, I'm a CRA 2 years, but find hard to find in-house CRA role. Does overqualification exist?
In-house CRA at a site level or in a CRO sponsor, I would say that in a CRO sponsor, not as often anymore. I think that the CRAs that and or remote site monitors that were already housed in these past few years have been seniorized or like they were fathered into those in-house CRA roles. They had first pick. That's what I'm thinking right now. I feel like most people that are coming into the industry and applying, they're still in the mindset of what was being offered during COVID. You have to understand. It's the same thing goes for nurses because I have friends in the clinical industry because I have 13 previous years of clinical industry. It's the same thing was happening with nurses. They got a huge surge of pay during COVID, and I'm talking about close to 75 an hour for some. And now that COVID's kind of taken its back seat a little bit, um, now people are going back to the old pay, right? And so it's you're having difficulties coming back to this transition, and you have to understand where we were was a different whole scenario. We are going back to what we were, and maybe with a few adaptations. So yeah, I would say if you're looking for fully in-house remote, I mean, again, open up, widen your opportunities for yourself because they're not as often or as much, I would say.
Okay, Angel, shout out to you, Angel. What's up, man? Great conversation. How much would you wait for a promotion that has not yet happened?
So it depends on what level you're in. So for example, where I was at a CRO level, I had a really amazing communication with such an amazing line manager who made such a huge impact in my career. And shout out to him if you haven't seen this, but um, you communication is key. So if you know you want a promotion, let's say a year from now, you would like to be in a better role, speak with your hiring manager or whoever it is that you're working with, right? And say, I want this role or I want to get this much pay at the end of this year. I'm letting you know because I'm working towards it. Lay out everything that you're going to do, certifications, training, process improvements that you're going to work on. Obviously, make sure that whatever you are saying, you actually showcase that the end of the year, because if not, you're not going to look like you are able to efficiently provide what you say, right? And if you can't, for whatever reason, have that reasoning available right at the end of the year, but be organized, right? Don't just say you want a promotion because, oh, well, I do this job and it's a year later. You need to also have a reasoning to showcase the person that you need to, I guess, sell yourself to. Like, hey, this is what I did. Now, I obviously said this a year ago. I was able to make it happen. Obviously, I have my worth here. This is what I want. And if you can't, well, fine. But now you can take that, your role, your experience, and your elevated new, I guess you could say, so word like portfolio of things that you created this year, you can go and take that elsewhere, right? And that's the whole point. It's not about putting yourself in the hands of somebody else. It's taking your career into your own hands and then laying that out for your manager, your company, or whoever, and saying, "This is what I have. Can you take it and work with it, or do you have to just do I have to leave it, right? Do I have to go?" And when you have that mentality and that mindset, you really, you really can do things for yourself. I think I can, to be quite honest, if it wasn't for everything I was involved with outside of my work, the way I would have approached my resignation probably would have never have happened. I would have not have had the
Ah,
confidence to say, hey,
so that's a key point right there.
yeah,
Okay,
mm,
you felt empowered.
yes,
Your work on your own, like on your own brand,
yeah.
empowered you to turn down a role or resign from a role because they were not fulfilling their end of the promise, more or less.
I mean, I guess maybe not feeling fulfilling their end on a promise. It was more of a thing of like, okay, well, this is what we're expecting. And for me, I was just like, well, there's things that I'm okay with and there's things I'm not okay with. Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we need to meet in the middle. And there was no middle to be had. And so I was put in a scenario where it was just like, all right, am I willing to take away from myself to give
So
to
it gave
somebody
you
else?
leverage. It
It
gave
gave
you
me leverage.
leverage.
Yeah. And obviously, what I'm doing outside, it speaks volumes, right? And it's not like I'm doing it because, oh, I want praise. Or no, I'm doing it because this is me, this is what I like. And I feel like it also showcases more than I even need to speak on it about what I can do, right? And I'm not saying, everybody go and build your own company or be a part of these organizations, whatever, like, do what you want to do. What I'm trying to say though is that build up on what you're good at, right? More than what somebody's asking from you. Do it yourself for yourself so that when it comes time to ask for something, you don't have to question, oh, well, I guess, because I've met people like this, like, well, I guess, they just didn't feel like I met the cut this year. And it's like, no, screw that. I did meet the cut. It's their problem. I'm going to take this elsewhere because somebody will see what I can do. And that's it. Right. And maybe it's not so easy and simple as that for everybody, but you take in what they say, they don't want to give you what you want. Fine. Smile, do your work and slowly be applying elsewhere where
Yeah.
somebody is looking for that.
Go to
And
ACRP, go to Save Our Sites conference, go to network with people. Look how many people are watching just on LinkedIn right now
how
from
many?
the comments. 48, right? So like there's people in the comments that are watching live. Like there's networking going on in the comments. There's people been hired from the comments of these live streams in the past. Like the networking happens everywhere. It doesn't just
Yeah.
happen at conferences. But that's a good point you bring up about having a brand. I wanted to just take that a step further. Maybe that's another podcast, like building up your own leverage
Yeah.
to because every company needs workers. Like we're not AI is not here to take over anyone's jobs anytime soon. Like everyone's gonna need workers. My site cannot function without my coordinators. CROs can't function without CRAs, without remote site monitors, without project managers. It's we need you guys, and you guys don't understand how much leverage you actually have,
Yeah.
and that compounds when you recognize that and you start building up your skill set and you start networking with other people.
Yeah. 100%.
That's good, really good advice. How much of a issue is being overqualified or having too many years of experience for a role that's not being filled? Do you find this as an issue?
I know of somebody, I don't know if he's on right now, but Alejandro, he's actually been going through that, which I think is quite interesting.
Alejandro, what
Yeah.
up?
I don't know if he's here, but yeah. So, yeah, he's been going through that too because he has 15 years of clinical industry, 5 years of management, and 3 years of research. And he's having a hell of a time trying to get interviews, which is insane, to be
Is
quite
it
honest.
because he's not willing to take a pay cut or it's
No,
um
and that's the thing. He's not even like going to the. They're not even getting to the point of the pay. And but yeah, he's willing to take a pay cut because he knows, as you're moving forward, how far it can move up. Like he's literally, he's asking for the lower end of CRC just to get his foot in the door because he
you
knows
know
once
what?
he gets in there,
So as a site owner,
yes.
I'm in a little bit of an island in Yuma. It's actually a desert, but it might
Mhm,
as well be an island where there's
mhm,
no other site for like 100 miles,
mhm.
except the hospital in town. But no one wants to work for them. So it's true, no one does. So as a site owner, if I saw somebody like that, but I were in a competitive market,
Mhm,
okay, like not in Yuma, but me in LA, me back in LA,
mhm.
I'm gonna think twice about hiring this person because I'm thinking, okay, they just want to come here to like get their experience current. So
Yeah.
by the time I'm done training them on my studies, they're gone. Like they're gonna go be remote site monitor.
Snowpost, wow.
That's the risk. That's the risk. Like, so I think Anthony, there is some truth to this, despite the PC answer of no, nobody cares. Like there is some truth, but how does the candidate, I guess,
Hold on.
persuade someone to do that?
How do they
And
persuade? Yeah, I think that feels very. It's a bit difficult, I would say. Sorry, I need to put on my charger real quick. Apologies.
no worries. But this is a real. I'm giving the site owner perspective on this topic, and overqualification does exist. But if I were to interview this person, like I would still interview them because I'm interested enough as a site owner to still interview these people. I would try to get in their head, and if I feel like they're being genuine about their 5 year goals, right?
Hmm.
Maybe their 5 year goals changed. Like maybe it's to be a site director. Well, maybe I do want to eventually replace myself at the site and have someone. So overqualification is exists, but it's the way the candidate uh, presents, and it has to be the right match too. Like not every
Hmm.
site's gonna look for a site director,
Yeah.
so you have to like kind of pick your interviews well. But it doesn't hurt to do more interviews.
Hmm. That's the real thing, though. It is what people are out there having
Yeah.
that issue. Yeah.
Why
So
would I train someone 3 months? I'm losing money when I train an employee for the first 3 months. Like they don't know how to do the studies. They might have experience. They don't know how to do my studies. So I don't know how to do my studies when they're new. We
when
have
I
to train
was
all of us.
when I was applying, I actually had somebody tell me that. And I remember I got to the very end with the hiring manager, and it was kind of funny because I said something around the lines. So she's like, "Well, do you feel like you're overqualified?" And I like giggled a little bit, and I said, well, "Do you?" Or so I was like, "I'm sorry. Are you asking me if you think I have all the qualifications and can save you money in the process?" Yes, I went like that, and then and she laughed, and she was like, "Yeah, well, because and she would explain her scenario, and I said, look, I'm like, you're a manager, you have a lot on your plate. Like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you. The fact that I have all this experience, I'm gonna let you relax. The way that you're gonna train me is gonna be so much more easier than everybody else. And like it's it's how you interview, it's how you sell yourself, honestly. And I do think I have a good knack at that, to be quite honest. I can gauge people, but it's how you approach it. If you are getting asked these questions, and if you are being told you have too much experience, and obviously when you get told that right off the bat, naturally people kind of shrug inwards and sink, and they already feel defeated just by hearing that.
Yep.
It's how you approach it, right? Like, no, you have to talk to them like they do not understand what they're talking about. And that's exactly how I approach these people. Like, no, let me tell you, like, you
So
obviously.
you have to reverse engineer who's
Yeah,
interviewing you, and
yeah.
that means you got to do your homework. So you got to go into it. You got to know, okay, this is a small company. It's a big company. It's a little
Mhm.
bit harder to do it at the big CROs though, because it
Yeah.
almost feels like an entire system is
Mhm.
interviewing you as opposed to like just a person.
Yeah, 100%.
Samantha says Alejandro and I are in the same boat. It's crazy.
It's a real
There's a
thing.
lot of us in the same boat, guys. Okay. SOS conference. Yes.
For
Um,
real, you guys, SOS, seriously,
yes, save
go
our sites. Hold on, let me get okay. We
get the
gotta
link.
get this free commercial underneath
You're gonna get, first of all, you're
saveoursites.com.
gonna get to meet us, which I would love to meet everybody. I mean,
Ashley's a co-founder. She's one of the like owners of this thing. Like
I'm
we
gonna make
want people
sure
there.
that we're touching on all these aspects, because I do feel like these things aren't being talked about enough. And we are going to have sponsors, companies there. So, having these conversations, thanks to Brad and Dr. Fox, they are going to be
Ooh, Brad
there.
Hightower, man.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Brad, Dr. Fox, Chris, Judy, Chris, who nobody ever sees or knows, Judy, Ashley, Monica, myself. We are Save Our Sites conference, and it's for everybody, not just sites. It's
Yeah.
for people
And
that
it's
want to
cheap.
work at
We
sites.
understand. We understand it's super cheap, you guys. Like,
They're
super,
cheap.
super cheap. Yeah.
Speaking of other conferences, this one's
Obviously.
actually good. ACRP is the clinical certified clinical research professional worth doing. I think
Are
that's
you
what the
talking
CP
about
stands for.
getting like ACRP and then coordinator, like taking the examination?
Yeah,
Honestly,
but this one is the clinical professional designation. I know because I almost did this once for myself, like 10 years ago.
Mhm.
and decided not to. Like in the middle of the application, I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm a site owner. Like, yeah, it's nice to put this behind my name, but what is it going to do? And like, it could help you get more studies. And one of the things I'm doing, I'm encouraging my staff, once they qualify, my coordinators, to get the CCRC certification. And we'll even pay for it. Because I do think when you have a site selection visit and you have ACRP certified staff, it helps you a little more, but it's not like a deal breaker.
Mhm.
So we're gonna pay for our staff, our coordinators, once they qualify. But I think you need like 2 years of experience before you can even qualify to take one of these tests.
Yeah. Um,
So it's worth it.
Me personally, no, I don't think so.
Ah,
Yeah. I mean, but
here
I'm
I
also
am being the safe one again.
But I'm also, and not to say that I don't appreciate what ACRP is doing. I think that what they're doing in the industry right now, helping do these sessions, that was my first time this past April and May that I went, and I actually very much enjoyed it. So I do think their conference, if you can afford it, definitely go and network. As far as the certifications are concerned, I mean, I think that when you're talking about like old guard, meaning people or organizations that have been around for the longest time, I think when you're going to these organizations, yes, that it does help. Just because, not so much because of, I think the training that you get or like the understanding you get. I think it's just the fact that it's again branding. ACRP's been here for so long. They're not going to sit down and say, okay, well, showcase to me exactly how much you know. They're not going to do that in the interview, other than your basic questions, and they're not going to do that, when you actually get the job. So I think it's just the fact that, okay, well, ACRP's been around forever. Because they've been around forever, they created this examination. It's them or Socra, and so that's just official stamps, right? I mean, that's not to say that when SOS grows, if we have our own certification, we don't not going to wait for you to do 2 years. If you have the knowledge, you have the understanding, you're getting the exposure. Let's create an examination, get you
But you
done
know
in.
what I like? You know what I like way more than certifications, and this is going to be a CRA Academy and a CRC Academy advertisement, is
Mhm.
real work experience. Like we
Yeah.
have in the CRA Academy a real, not mock, real breast cancer study that our interns get to work on. We are working on getting 5 new protocols for rare disease for our CRA Academy and CRC Academy.
Mhm.
I think that's to me more important than a certification.
It is. It
And if a
is.
certification comes with it, so be it. Ashley, take this question. I'm gonna get some water because I didn't
Okay,
realize that I'm not over this cold.
for sure.
But how is the hiring landscape evolving for regulatory compliance or project management professionals? Take that in general.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know
yeah.
you don't have that much experience with oncology,
Yeah.
and I'll be right back.
Okay, and what kind of skills and qualifications are increasingly sought after by employers in this role? So, yeah, I've actually seen a lot of regulatory and project management. I've actually been seeing this more often at site level. So, usually when we think about site level, we're talking about just one doctor's office, but I'm seeing these big companies that have multiple sites, kind of like a site network. Um, they're creating these departments to kind of oversee that as a whole. So these naturally, I mean, for the most part, the most basic skill sets that honestly in all of research is important: quality assurance, right? Why? Because good clinical practice, we need to make sure that the patients are being taken care of. The way to do that is to make sure documentation is accurate, making sure the processes are going through well. Again, this is what a CRA comes and does and oversees, but regulatory and project management are kind of a bigger scoping view. I think project management is like the overall view of that. Regulatory is more focused in on obviously regulatory, but I don't think there's just one set skill. I think again it comes down to your exposure, and this is why me personally, going back to that last question about you know is the certification worth it? I'm also one of those people that don't even believe a master's is worth it, to be quite honest. And I'm saying this with this question because if I would have been in college and I would have known about the CRC Academy, I hands down would have used my tuition money extracted that money and actually took in these academies because of the fact that somebody that worked since she was 19, I didn't realize that I was building a huge background portfolio for myself, just staying in the clinical industry since I was 19, just to work, just to get exposure. I went from secretary to medical department to overseeing documentations without realizing that I was building myself quite big. So by the time I was in college, right, the higher end part of my college degree, I was getting paid what some of these graduates got paid once they finally got out with the degree, right? Because I already had so much experience and exposure. I understood that very early on before I even graduated. So I was actively looking for things that I could go in immediately and build my background on, right? And so I say that because, again, with these academies, you're getting that experience and exposure. So when you come into these interviews or when you do your resume, you understand, not literally plain sight, like, what's here on paper. Okay, well, they want X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to put X, Y, and Z. It's one thing to put it on your application. It's a whole other thing to be able to actively and eloquently speak on it in the way that they are wanting. They're wanting you to be able to elaborate and understand the processes and background. So, for example, if let's say graduated with your master's in clinical research and you have all this backing behind you and you're wanting to do regulatory compliance, you're going to come in and say, well, I have my degree and I have this and I have that. I understand the academia, and you're giving them all surface view information that everybody knows, right? But you're going to come in, somebody else is going to come in, let's say a coordinator that doesn't even have a bachelor's, but a coordinator that has 5 years experience that can come in and duly explain the biggest problems in research, their previous experience, the way that they were able to come in and address these issues, right? And talking about the importance of those issues and why he or she addressed them the way they did in regards to not just the site level, but understand the CRO and the sponsor need. That is gold, right? So that's why I'm saying, don't just be focused and hung up on just what is it that they want? What are the skills that they want? Look at what you have, look at your background, understand in depth what you are bringing to the table, and figure out how you're going to elaborate on that, considering that company's wants, needs, and issues. That right there is going to be the most strongest way that you can present yourself. So stop worrying about what they need, because you're going to be applying to more than just one company, right? And each company, on a general basis, they all kind of have the want and same needs, but some of them have bigger focuses, right? And more things that they're looking for from their new team members, or however you want to put it. So it's the most general response I could give, and a little bit much, but yeah.
Excellent. And it gave me a water break. All right, Jesse. Clinical research coordinator roles are too nuanced and complex to be worked on fully remote. I agree 100%. All right, if there's more than 100, it's that. The sports
Yeah.
cliche, it's more than 100%. I agree. Coordinator roles, there are going to be more and more elements of it that are decentralized. Like let's do this visit virtually instead of in person. Okay, that's fine. But what happens when the patient needs to come do a blood draw? And what happens when you got to ship the blood on dry ice or ambient? I mean, all of a sudden, this whole thing collapses with let's do this all virtually, all these virtual visits. Like, you want to kill decentralized clinical trial? Shipping labs on dry ice. Like, how are you going to do this virtually? We don't have like Star Trek technology to be able to draw blood virtually, get dry ice virtually, ship it, spin the tubes virtually. It doesn't happen. And that's just the lab aspect. There's the whole investigational product accountability. There's some drugs you cannot ship to patients' home. Like there are infusions, there's injections, there's subcutaneous. You have to switch injection locations. So if you've been a coordinator at one of these DCT companies, it's time to get serious about your career and get back to a traditional site near you. Public service announcement. LinkedIn user says, Ashley, are you getting interviews? I've been on the market since January. This is a senior CRA. I've
Hmm.
had 3 interviews, but they have literally slowed down since the last interview I had was last month.
Yeah, so I've gone through that process. I would say that at that point, then it's coming down to maybe the therapeutic areas you have experience in, right? Because we all know that that does play a role. My therapeutic area is neuro rare disease gene therapy. So that's already very hard to come by. So I think that that obviously plays into favor for me. And then again, I will say, and I'm not just assuming this, 'cause I know because it's came up in the actual conversations, but there's also kind of a highlight to me based off on all the things that I'm doing outside of just my work, right? People or companies are liking that I am a face of something. Um, so that I know that that helps as well. But I think it does come down to that, your therapeutic area, the background, and maybe even the region that you're in. Because if it's a CRA position that is regional travel, right? Or there's only, yeah, like regional travel, say like just for example, let's say North Carolina, right? And there's so many applicants and they only need one because there's already a plethora. Like that can be an issue. Yeah, I think it's just that. And then again, the industry takes its time in applying. I do feel some people get white glove service, and what I mean by that is, you know, you kind of stand out a little bit more, and they just reach out to you quite quickly, or your recruiter that is handling your application is maybe a senior recruiter, and they're overseeing multiple different. I mean, there's just so many things to be considerate of, and I do hate to know that you know you've only had that many interviews. That's very very unfortunate, but don't give up because again, there's just so many jobs out there for CRA roles, and even though you might be a traveling CRA, if you're only applying to certain ones, then maybe at this point, since we're already getting into June, consider the things that you are trying to avoid and maybe start being a little bit more open about some of those things if there are aspects in there that you're only applying to for certain things that they're offering. But
Mhm.
that's honestly the most I could give you. So yeah.
Someone has to jumpstart from somewhere. So, how to get into CRA job without having experience? Site level, small
Mhm.
site near you. Ask. Katie's not on. Daisy's on. I see Daisy in the comments here. Daisy wants to go to SOS conference too. This is my CRC in Yuma. She's probably at the desk right now. There's probably a patient visit right now. Shout out to Daisy. She's gonna be, because I have CRO as well. When I need a part-time remote site monitor, who do you think I'm gonna reach out to first? Like my CRCs. They're available. They could do the remote site monitor in their off time, a few hours here and there.
Mhm.
She got in at a small site level, right? Before that, she was at a big institution, UC San Diego, everything's streamlined. But the way to do it is to get at the small site, work your way up. I should have Casey on. Casey, Ashley, you know Casey Figueroa. She
Mhm.
handles a bunch of our stuff. She's monitoring for us now.
Oh,
Like she's
awesome!
probably actually right now she's probably monitoring a site for us.
Very
Um,
cool.
in Napa Valley. Lucky her too. She gets Napa. She gets to have wine afterwards. But she was a coordinator for over 10 years. All right, no bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
She's grandfathered in due to experience. If you Most of the time you need a degree if you can be a CRA, but if you have enough experience, sometimes 10 years is what it takes.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna say, you know what? I know I could trust you to do this. There's no rules that say I need a someone who's going to be a CRA with a bachelor's degree. I just need someone competent to do it.
Mhm.
This girl has worked for me for 10 years. I know she can do it. Boom. Now you're a CRA.
Yeah, I will say this, especially those that are trying to get into CRA role, you have to pay your dues. Like, and I don't say this lightly. Look, before I got into research, um, not before I got into research, when I got into research, I was at a hybrid clinic. The only way I could work at that time to do that, I was in college. I would wake up a 7 a.m., go to college, doing my 16-hour session, 18-hour session, coming out at 5 o'clock. I got a job that was hybrid, but I would have to do the night shift, meaning sometimes I wouldn't get home till 1:30, 2 a.m. and have to do it all over again. Right? It was brutal. But I will also say this, that and I don't talk about this often because it's a little personal thing, but I would do that job, okay? And part of the deal with that job was also that since I was the night shift, that I also had to do janitorial work. So the last hour, 2 hours, I would be, and this is a clinic was not the cleanest, okay? And it was a very high, it's in a rural area, very high. We would see about 80, sometimes 112 patients a day. They had a lot of providers, but that's how huge and crazy it was. At night, I would be picking up trash. I'd be mopping, sweeping. I mean, cleaning up some really gross stuff. And I remember very distinctly, at times feeling very, very down because of the fact that I knew I was more than that, right? And driving home was always insane. It was brutal. This was for 2 years, okay? 2 years of hardly sleeping, doing this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Every night I would tell myself, I'm doing this because I need to build on this. I have to build on this. This is the only way I can get out of my rural area and build on that. And that was the only opportunity to have that paid me, somewhat decent. So that's what I did. And it was very challenging, mentally, physically, but I sucked it up. And so that's just it. There are some beautiful stories out there where you just kind of follow into it, but no. And mind you, when I graduated and came out, I still didn't get picked up. I had to do another 3 years of public health. That was the shittiest, sorry, my language, but it was the most horrible thing I had to experience because I was not motivated. I did not like my job. I loved the people I worked with, but I did not like my job. And it ate at me. And I finally took some time to, but I did it because I was in a well-known academic medical setting that was known for Nobel laureate and research. And that was my second round, so total of 5 years, second round of sucking it up for the branding. And it paid off.
Wow.
It paid off.
That's the first time. Hear it here first, guys. That's the start. That shows you right there what it takes. I mean, and the passion that it requires. And this is not a job. This is a career, guys. And we'll get to these questions. Ashley, we gotta have you more often. These are great comments. I've never had a more engaged group. Dan, there are things you don't understand how DCT model runs. I know. The entire industry doesn't understand how DCT model runs. Not just me. I am playing with it though at my site. This is probably a good segue to get into the advice because no, I don't understand how DCT runs. I've been trying to figure it out. I understand bits and pieces, but I don't understand it fully. I don't think that anyone does, actually. I think people want it
So
to
very
work a
new.
certain way. But there's tools like eSource, right? Like the simplest you can get is like eSource, eReg. Okay, what's next? Well, next is like direct to patient, and there's some models where they have staff go to the patient home. There's other companies like MedVector, which I'm actually trying to use, Alaba. So like I'm trying to understand by using. MedVector is a promising one. I know Brad uses it where they'll have referring physicians and then you can do the visits virtually with the patient without them having to leave their referring physician's office. Like there's elements of this that are gonna take off and some that won't, right? But what I'm saying is like most sites, most coordinators, it's not yet. We're not there yet where we have remote coordinators. That's all I'm saying. But if you worked at one of these non-traditional DCT type of companies and you got laid off, you can bring some of this to your sites in your area. Say, hey, have you heard about Viva? You can get on eReg for free. Have you heard about Creo? Have you heard about Versatrial, where you can get access to all your platforms collaboratively? Have you heard about MedVector? And there's so many other vendors out there that you can mess around with. So that's like one of the things I would do if I were a somebody that got laid off from one of these non-traditional ones. Is like bring elements of it. Not all of that stuff was bad. Like CareX has had some really good ideas, some innovative stuff. If you could bring pieces of what worked to the traditional sites and empower the traditional sites to use these things to better themselves, you've got job security. Mariana, kind regards from Romania.
Oh, wow.
Bună dimineața sau bună seara, nu știu.
I've never heard you
Uh,
say that. Awesome.
that's a first. Let's start Romanians and Clunker research
Super
next,
smooth,
guys.
like your Spanish.
Don't give Monica another idea.
And
Wisdom, I love this name. I'm a coordinator with over 3 years UK experience. How do I get my foot in the CRA door? You just do it. It starts here, Wisdom,
Mhm.
on LinkedIn. Network with these people out here. Um,
Rewatch
send
this
me
recording.
do what you got to do to go to 100 jobs. All right, just start getting interviews. um, thank you for mentioning you're considering pursuing project management to enhance your marketability for future roles. I was unsure if PMP or ACRP PM certification would be indicated.
Mhm.
And people are looking like people like your idea of the PM thing.
Hey,
Is there a chance to get a job in CR fully remote without experience, just online courses? CRA Academy.
yeah.
You get the breast cancer experience. For right now it's still breast cancer. I think in a few more quarters we're switching over, God willing, to the rare disease stuff, which should
Hey, that's
power us
awesome.
for the next 7 years.
Rare disease, good.
Ashley's gonna be involved. She doesn't even know yet. Uh, how do can you tell me how does subject recruitment process work for different sites, and can it be automated? I don't think it can be automated, Rashad. It can be streamlined, but
Mhm.
ultimately somebody like me, like Daisy. I wish Daisy can jump on right now, but she's with a patient. Daisy, if you're watching, comment. But we can streamline it up until the point of like contact. Like somebody needs to call, and I know we're in the age of texting. Most of my patients that we've gotten from central recruitment campaigns require a phone call to come in. Somebody has to persuade them to at least show up for their screening visit.
Mhm.
I think that requires a little bit of experience and somebody who knows what they're talking about, because patients ask different kind of questions, um, and a lot of it's study specific also. So it's not just understanding research; it's understanding the particular protocol.
Yeah,
I
and the
don't think that could
population
be
that you're
automated.
trying to address too.
That too, like I mean, once you get into like language stuff, yeah, like
Mhm.
Judy Galindo from LIC, Latinos in Clinical Research. That's what she talks about. This one's gonna block all of our faces, but the job seeking experience isn't for the faint hearted. It's a test of character and stamina. Crossing over from site level to other areas of research is extremely difficult, irrespective of value add your skills may bring. In addition to applying for opportunities, make this time about spilling up, rebranding, consulting, etc. I could say the waiting period is not being wasted on me.
Very
Exactly
awesome.
right attitude.
Very good. Very
Exactly
good.
right. I
Very
think
good.
Samantha gets it. It's not a job, it's a career.
Yeah.
What do you
Whatever
think
you
about
do
people
now.
that what do you
Go ahead.
think about this, Ashley? The people that worked in this industry because of the hiring frenzy that was post COVID until recently.
Hmm.
And now they've never had like a real job in clinical research. They've had like these untraditional, like experimental roles.
Hmm.
They want to quit, go to another industry. Like, what do you think? They saw it as a job. Maybe they wanted to see it as a career, but now they're going to other industries because I've had comments say, "Hey, I'm going to leave this industry."
I mean, I think it's, to teach your own, right? We all have different journeys. I think it's doable. I think it's fine. I mean, I left an industry which technically I could have stayed and probably have gotten paid much more in the sense of my background experience, but the thing is, I think it comes down to like, what are you looking, what are you seeking, what are you getting out of that career, right? What the purpose that you're getting from it, right? And so for me, and when I first met you, I told you for me, I'm huge on biotechnology, AI. I like health and like helping people, but coming from the healthcare industry, I felt that that was an industry that, yes, just kind of like the pharmaceutical, there's you know, their processes take forever and all these things, but there still wasn't really an aspect of real innovation happening. It was just the same things over and over and over again, no matter how high you went up, right? And so when I looked into research, even if processes are still old and take a long time to change, the point being is that the work that you're doing though is part of future movement, right? And especially now, even more so, I think I really took to heart what it is that I wanted, because outside of my job, I'm helping potentially maybe create movement towards actual faster track processes in the industry through LICR, through SOS, through all these things. So um, I think people should always be open to that, being really mindful about where the industry that you're in, if is it really giving you what it is that you need, because you can be in it for years and it cannot necessarily be suited for what it is that you're wanting to get out of it, right? So um, I'm not surprised people are doing that. I actually encourage it, to be quite honest. I think that if, for me personally, if this industry were to somehow stop meeting that aspect for me, I'd probably jump into tech. But for the most part, I don't. I see myself being here, like legit, because of all the extra things that we're doing now. And yeah, but
Let's get through some more of these questions. Are there opportunities to do monitoring work during the weekends? Yes. Well, at least for for my organization, yeah. But we're not hiring, guys. We're very small. What? This one's interesting to me. Okay, this
Mhm.
one. Having a master's degree in neurobiology, mostly working in academic. Last job was a neurobiology lab manager.
Mhm.
Sorry. Trying to rebrand myself and thinking of CPM in the future. What would be a good start to put myself in that path? Currently taking monitoring courses. Do you think I'm eligible for something like CTA or regulatory coordinator to start with? Yes.
Oh yeah,
What you
I
need to
think.
do is get on, like, map out the 50 biotechs that do neurobiology that you're familiar with the science and tell them, hey, I have this background. You could work me into this role, but I'll start as regulatory coordinator. I'll start below my pay because this is where I want to be as a PM. You
Mhm.
just need to have like 50 of these conversations and start on LinkedIn and end up in interviews until you find one that takes you on.
I would say look at lead CTA roles in sponsor level. Lead CTA roles.
Uh,
Yeah, because if it's just a CTA, I think you might come across again, if you're coming and not to put damper on it, but like a basic recruiter that doesn't know the processy that maybe a senior recruiter after so many years of talking to these different divisions would understand, you have the risk of them coming like, no, you're overqualified, right? But if you're dealing with a senior recruiter or if you're going through a lead role, you can see that through your background, right? That you can jump into a lead role. So I would say lead CTA for sure. And just like what Dan had said, that honestly would probably be one of my first things that I do. What Dan just mentioned.
mm-hmm. Geez, we've got. I mean, let's go through a few more of these.
Yeah.
2 years of a CRC at a small site, get an entry level CRA role. You, in this case, you have to have a bachelor's for the most
Mhm.
part. If you've got 10 years or more, there's a small enough CRO out there that will take you on. But it has to be like 10 years of CRC at the right site where you're really doing everything as a CRC. Like
Mhm.
small site where you are a generalist. There are no bridge programs taking entry levels anymore. I'm a foreign pharmacy grad, by the way. Work with your existing CRAs. All right. You have the degree. Work with your existing CRAs. That's where you start. Work here on LinkedIn. But that's really where it starts is the existing CRAs.
And the networking. Yeah.
Yeah, networking. SaveOurSites.com. I know it's February, but plan out ahead.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not free. We've had a free conference before, and people didn't show up because well, people did show up, but not a lot of people showed up because they thought it was going to be a sales pitch.
Yeah.
So we made a nominal fee for people to come, plus helps pay for the venue and the food and all those things. We're not looking to make money off of this
Mhm.
ourselves. Uh, ah, Foreign physicians love them.
Hey, Carlos.
I've had the toughest time making my way into clinical research, apparently overqualified by underexperienced. Research site, small research site, Carlos, near you. The PIs are going to love you because you are a physician just like they are. They're going to trust you. Some of my best CRCs ever were foreign trained physicians. They understood the lab results, they understood the EKG, and they were able to point things out to the PI when they brought things for the PI to sign. It's like an extra layer of AI. Like,
I actually had a client who worked at academia, and he offered his services as a translator to physicians first, and then mentioned his background, and then stated that he would be happy to help in recruitment if coordinator was not an option, and also happy to do it kind of on a PRN basis, which is good because it at least helps your branding. You're at least getting out there, you're getting exposure, you can help, and then of course you're staying in that doctor's or PI's radar. So I mean, I think with somebody like your background, especially because I know that you went through the CRC Academy, when you have such a specific background, I think that there's so many ways for you to offer yourself and not literally just through that one position. Especially if you take the time to go present yourself and you say that, well, an IMG, I'm an international medical graduate. I'd love to speak to your PI about assisting him as a physician or as however you'd like, just to get your foot in the door to get talking with the doctor, because the doctor will see you as a peer, obviously, and you can speak more openly about the opportunities in which you can help him. Maybe coming to the site and coming to the medical office director or the site coordinator, it would be different as opposed to actually speaking with a physician, the PI, and seeing how you can help. Because I know that that individual who I'm talking about went directly oversaw the coordinator for the office and went straight to the PI and had an open, genuine conversation about his skill set, his background, and how he'd be happy to help the doctor. So, and the PI. So something maybe to consider.
okay, Rika says, I'm from Ohio. Is there an interactive digital version of SOS available so people like me from out of state can take advantage? Hi, Ashley. Rika,
Yeah.
currently, I don't know. Um, Currently, the answer is no.
Yeah.
It's affordable enough to where yes, you have to pay for your own flight and hotel. But compared to the other conferences, it's like 10x cheaper.
Yeah.
So no, but we may work on something in the future. This is our first one, so
Yeah.
that we're figuring things out.
Mhm.
But that's been on the table.
If any of you guys here are really like it piqued an interest, just saying we are 9 months away, but
Wow.
as yeah, as an organized person, I'm telling you, like you want to at least know for sure if you're gonna go by September, August, September, the latest, because the preparation and then actually getting a hotel and all that stuff, you want to make sure that you're getting all that situated in advance.
What are the current job prospects and emerging opportunities for feasibility analysts? This is a good
Mm.
question. What initiatives and strategies are being implemented to enhance and improve feasibility questionnaires using cancer?
So I actually think this is interesting because one of the companies I was speaking to, they're only hiring for one particular thing, and I was being discussed with one particular thing, and this was a site network. But once they came back after discussing it with one of the head PIs, they were actually asking, well, you know what, we'd actually like to know, do you do site feasibility? Which I thought was interesting because one, that just showed me that somewhere in between there might be a slight disconnect of what's needed additional to the role that they were that they were considering me for. But second, that there's obviously at the higher up level, they know, again, site network, they know that they're needing these kinds of things more and more, especially as they're growing. So again, perfect example as to why not only just apply to jobs, but I think also presenting your face and speaking to somebody about what your capabilities are, making sure that all the little specific details are on your resume. But when you chat with them, talk about things you can do also outside of that job description. Because if you want to, again, make yourself that much more, forget the word, it's kind of lost right now, but if you want to make yourself that much more valuable to them, these are some of the things that I would even say to cover or to mention. So yeah.
Okay. Wow. These are a lot.
There's a lot
Okay,
of questions.
just yeah. Just started as a clinical research technician at an academic site. What time frame do you think I should aim for to reach that coordinator level?
So some of coming from academia, I've seen academia before. They are going to, and Dan, you mentioned this, they're going to focus in on just one particular role set. So during that time frame, make it a point to let whoever's above you know that, hey, can I shadow this? Can I shadow that? I'd love to know this. I'd like to be a backup. That's what I did. They never needed help, but I said, look, if there's ever a situation that somebody can't show up, I'd love to be their backup. Can you cross train me? So I got cross trained. I didn't ask for more money, nothing like that. But knowing full well aware that my strategy was to use that to my advantage later, right? So I got cross trained on almost every department in where I used to work. And yeah, so get cross training. If you can get certified on the back end, if you want to be a coordinator, do the CRC training in the meantime. It's virtual. You can get that experience and exposure. Then you can talk to your coordinator and say, hey, I'm doing this training. I'd love to help you, make use of me. Right. And when you see, and if they say no, just wait around. If you see days where they're super stressed out and say, hey, I told you I'm doing this training, let me help you, doing it for free. Don't be dumb. That's exactly what I would do to whoever needed my help or who wouldn't want to utilize me because you know, they're being I forget what they call it, they're gatekeeping or whatever.
Mm.
People are being
Academia is a lovely place.
yeah.
Look, Ali, I got a homework for you. You're on
Mhm.
YouTube. I need you to the comment underneath yours on StreamYard is Daisy. Okay? This is my CRC. She worked at an academic place, something very similar to this clinical research technician. I don't even know what that is, but it's very streamlined. It sounds like it. Daisy's now doing everything at our site. Just finished a blood draw, she said. Okay, the ability to level up your skill set, like Samantha said, skilling up is much more effectively done at a small community clinic. Not to say you can't do it within academia, and academia has some really good things they bring to the table, but a career development, they're not known for this. Okay, so that's your homework. Go connect with Daisy on LinkedIn and talk to her about how she did it. Or if you don't want to leave YouTube, just watch my video with Daisy on YouTube, how she did it. That might be the way to go. CT educators. Yeah, I remember some of the CROs hired people called clinical trial educators. These were usually like RNs that had some experience with research. They go
Mhm.
around helping sites recruit patients. It's okay. It's not. It didn't really help us much, but these are roles that you can get into if you're an RN, and you could probably have an impact in different communities, but it does require some travel. You know anything about this, Ashley?
Not the educators, but yeah, it's not on the clinical trial end, but there are educators. They are normally, like you mentioned, registered nurses. I would assume on the more on the product management end, to be quite honest, where like it's biotech, say like diabetes devices, talking about explaining to the patient on about the device, how to work it, the background of it, kind of get them more aware of the whole thing. But as far as clinical trial, not so much that I'm aware of. No,
Okay. We're almost done, guys. Thank you so much.
I know it's
Like,
pretty busy.
subscribe, comment, share. Uh, Yvonne says, as a CRC, I think we are the most important aspect in keeping studies running smoothly. Absolutely. It's not even debatable. This is the case. How can coordinators try to negotiate higher pay? I love this right when Daisy's watching.
Yeah.
Daisy, don't get ideas, right? We'll work. We'll work with you.
So with this one, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, where if you want, you have to set a goal, right? At the end of the year, you want to get paid X amount more. First of all, be reasonable about what you're asking for. Don't
Yes.
literally be over the top, because then you're setting yourself up for failure. Because, one, if you're at a CRC or CRO or a sponsor and you're a clinical trial coordinator that's remote, that's one thing. They obviously have a bigger budget to work with. If you're at a site or site network, obviously there's not as much room to work with. To be reasonable about your goals, right? What I like to do is think about what's the current focus about that company, right? What is something that is a current issue that I can work on? Because obviously, not are you just being better and working better, but you're actually bringing higher value to the company itself. So, say if a company is barely starting and they're trying to be more efficient, work on efficiency issues, process improvements, right? And actually take documentation of that. Um, Not only that, but quantify it in the sense of how much percentage, right? If you can, because metrics are always great to have. Um, think about the trainings that you've had. Make yourself more valuable. So again, like let's say feasibility, for example, if you're a CRC and you don't know about feasibility and you want to get trained in that, get trained in that. So now instead of them hiring somebody that would naturally cost more, they have you to do that. Obviously, though, it's going to be more work on you. So gauge on how far you're willing to work more the following year. Know that that work is going to get increased for you to make more money the following year after that. So just you be fully mindful about not just the money and what you can do in this year, but what that's going to mean for your leveling up the year after that and the year after that, right? It's gonna more is going to be expected of you. So work smarter, not harder. Think very critically about what you're willing to do and how much you're willing to ask for, and does that coincide with each other?
Yeah. And know what kind of company you're at. If you're at a startup, Katie and Daisy, I know you guys. Shout out to them, by the way. They're gonna go SOS conference. Um, One of my jobs as a site owner, like a small site owner, is to keep the employees that
Mhm.
I want around. So I understand there's competitors outside, even if
Mhm.
they're not similar type of companies that are out there. So I try to, I mean, the financial aspect's very important for workers. I
Yeah,
try to first make a stable job, then I try to make it lucrative for them too.
yeah.
So we're thinking of doing things like bonuses based on enrollments and different things like that. But one of the things I do, like everybody's got to do what they can do, like use their advantages. Side gigs, like through my other companies.
What I will say is
We have
this:
opportunities. So
the environment, right? Because like I can say, for example, I loved where I worked. I loved, the opportunities that were given to me, but the environment, right? It wasn't about losing the pay. Actually, what hit me the most was losing my line manager, because he was amazing and I enjoyed working with him. He was very supportive. So that spoke a lot to me when it came down to the actual like process of going through it. Um, so yeah, I mean, money talks, obviously, but again, don't just think about the money. You want to think about where you're at. Like, are you comfortable where you're at? Are you happy where you're at? Because if that can't be made or that can't be met, you want to be okay. Well, then how much less am I willing, right? And does that equate to, if I had to leave because I felt my needs were not met, would I be willing to leave that environment, that culture? Because I can tell you right now, you will get paid more and be offered more somewhere else, but there's a reason why you're getting offered higher pay and that job is open, right? Because sometimes somebody might not like where they're working, and vice versa, right? So again, those kinds of things you have to be mindful of and not just be like, okay,
somebody might have just left
all right. Yeah,
because the
exactly.
managers are just intolerable
Yeah,
and they're throwing money out there for somebody else to step in and
yeah.
take that abuse or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and that is a very real thing. So
In 10 minutes, I got a call for Yuma Clinical Trials. You want to jump on it with me, Ashley? You get some feasibility experience.
let's do it. Whatever.
Do you
I
think
got
someone with
time.
We're trying to get new studies for Daisy and Katie and
Mhm.
Desiree. Do you think someone with transferable skills like project management but no direct CR
Oh
experience can
yeah.
get into the industry?
Yeah. I will say though that if you have a foundation of clinical research and not direct experience, so like the academies, I would recommend that. I don't get anything directly from the academy. So this is just I'm not promoting. I'm just saying based off of my experience, based off of what I would be doing, I would do that. Just because again, it's you have the skill sets that are transferable and the way that you can kind of help yourself doesn't mean that you wouldn't get any interviews without that. No, you could probably still get interviews. But again, ultimately, how you're going to respond to those answers, you need to know the foundation of research. You need to get your personal viewpoint as a project management manager. You need to have your understanding of clinical research thoroughly so that when you're responding to those questions that they're going to ask you, if you're coming in with no industry experience, you at least can show that you understand the concepts and how you would be useful, right? And by knowing that is through education. So that's just like natural process of thinking for me.
Mm, how can one get into clinical development department? I saw a few posts CDD and research. I believe that is very relevant for IMGs. Yeah, and also the neurobiology major above. This is like on the science stuff. I think just like small sites are the way to go. Small sponsors are the way to go as well. I've been saying small is the new big for a while, and I
Mhm.
think that just the most opportunities are there at the small sites or small biotechs in this case. I'm looking for a regulatory coordinator with experience. Any advice on where to start looking? Thank you. Um, yeah, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They're in the comments. You should go on LinkedIn and see the comments. There's people probably that would want to do this. Alan says it's going to be hard to negotiate at smaller sites, network and go to the sponsor or CRO side, or start your own site. Yes, but be careful, guys. The grass is not always greener. You know how many people I know go for more pay to CROs and sponsors, and then they want to come back to the sites because it's flexibility of schedule. It's less pressure. You worked in a high pressure environment at CRO. You
Yeah.
just kind of glossed over that.
Mhm.
That's high
It's
pressure.
it's pressure. If you're not an organized person, don't even step in there because you're gonna get eaten up. Just quite honestly. And even as a very organized person, I mean, like I said, I could literally be busy every minute of the 8 hour day if I actively like tried to just do something. There was always work to be done, there was always deadlines to be met, and you have multiple people that are coming to you from every angle all the time. So yes, see your own sponsor does pay more, you can negotiate more bigger budgets, but for a reason. So again, be mindful of who you are, what you want. If you like having a job that you can do, but also coast in the middle, stay where you're at. Stay where you're at because CROs and sponsors, you're going to work after hours. Like that's a given. Now they're
Mm.
actually putting that in the job descriptions. I'm seeing that more often. Be willing to work, after evenings and sometimes weekend hours based off on deadlines and meeting points, which means always, right? You're always having to meet deadlines. You're always having something's happening all the time. So you would need to be willing because they know that the regular 8 hour day is not enough time. So
Daisy says, I can attest to that. High pressure, more pay isn't always worth it. Yes, Daisy. Calvin, last one. Last one. When it comes to creating SOPs for streamlining the completion of feasibility questionnaires, who should take the responsibility, the site or the CRO? They both need SOP for feasibility. The site has their own process, how they complete it. On my site, it's me, usually. And then at CRO, it's how they how they send out the feasibilities, distribute, how they analyze. So everybody does this. Inato, one of my sponsors, shout out to Inato. is looking to disrupt this by getting involved in between the site and the CRO. They're neither. They're a tech vendor, and they're taking this task head on. And Nato, I use it. Katie, my other CRC, uses it. We're gonna get the other two to use it. Actually, there's a new study in there we got to look at, guys. But this is one of the companies. This is like one of the areas of research where I think in the future it's going to be a little streamlined using tech. So, yeah, both need SOPs, sites, and zeros. Anything else, Ashley? What? We're going to wrap up. You're going to jump on my next call with you, McClenko Charles. You feel like
Let's do it.
representing us?
I
Okay.
mean,
Get a hold of Ashley. Link to her LinkedIn is somewhere. It's not underneath. It'll be underneath on YouTube and
okay.
in the podcast. But if you're watching it live, just Google her name on LinkedIn. You'll find it right
Just,
there.
FYI, you guys, I'm not as active. Like, I don't post a lot of stuff. Everything I do is external. So, just in case you guys are wanting to follow for that reason, there's not much there. It's just letting you know. I do answer my direct messages, though. So,
That's right. All right. Thank you guys. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Thank you to the sponsors Versatrail and Nato and Creo. Everybody go check them out underneath the video and in the show notes. Bye bye.